And welcome to the CPR Performance Studio. We are OpenAir 102.3 FM. Mike Flanagan with you with a very special guest today. So Wikipedia says you're a multi-instrumentalist, an artist, a wizard, a true star, all those things you've been
Whatever
hearing.
Wikipedia says must be true.
They say. It's a joy to talk to you because you've been talking to me for all these years. This is Todd Rundgren.
Thank you.
You are in Denver for a special occasion. You're an artist in residence now.
Yes, I am at the University of Colorado here in Denver. We're right in the midst of a week's worth of various activities, including a couple of seminars, a concert on this evening, I believe, and another kind of symposium, I believe, tomorrow. So a whole gamut of things going on this week.
Great. We're going to talk about all those things. You've got a new album. We have lots to talk about, but we thought we'd let you just dive in and start playing first. I'm used to you being in a room with like lots of instruments around and you're conducting them like on the inside of something, anything.
Oh, that's
so this
that
is
image
weird.
has haunted me ever since. But
it worked though.
yeah, that was when the year that I lived in California, and the Something Anything record, which was kind of a high water mark for me. Although, maybe I will play something from that.
Rock and roll, Todd Rundgren in
yeah,
the
we're going to
open
rock
air.
and roll right now.
Okay.
Actually, this was the first single off of Something Anything.
Nice.
Although this will be in an unfamiliar style. It was late last night. I was feeling something wasn't right. There was not another soul inside. Only you. So we walked alone. Though I knew that there was something wrong, and a feeling hit me oh so strong about you. Then you gazed up at me, and the answer was plain to see, 'cause I saw the light in your eyes, in your eyes. So we had a fling. I just never would suspect a thing till that little bell began to ring in my head, but I tried to run, though I knew it wouldn't help me none, 'cause I could never ever love no one. So I said, but my feelings for you were just something I never knew, till I saw the light in your eyes, in your eyes, in your eyes, in your eyes. But I tried you best. It's not something that I say in jest, 'cause you're different, girl, from all the rest. In my eyes, and I ran out before, but I won't do it anymore. Can't you see the light in my eyes, 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 in my eyes. And that's how we do it, bossa nova style.
I was going to say it's kind of got a little tropical wind going in that.
Yeah, I did an album of remakes of all of my old tunes in the mid '90s, I guess.
It's like a bossa
Album called
nova
with a twist, and it
Yeah.
had a lot of the well-known songs, but done in a bossa nova style.
What fun! What fun! You stay so active and so busy. What's the zeitgeist that keeps you going? I think it's interesting that technology finally caught up with you because you were way ahead of the curve for the longest time. Do you think you're even now, or are you still 5 or 6 years down?
Well, it's not like I'm attempting, to get necessarily ahead of the curve. These things are always interesting to me. When I was very young, I wanted to build a robot pal to protect me from all the neighborhood bullies.
Of course.
And I realized you needed a brain, so I started learning about Boolean logic and, the foundations of what eventually became computer science. And so I was always interested in that. Whenever something of a technological nature became available, I would kind of jump on it just to learn what the possibilities were. And some things worked out and some things didn't. But it served me pretty well in the long run, learning a lot about not just computers, but how they integrate with the so-called music business.
That must have been a time for you because I remember all the albums when you would lay down the guitar and the piano and God knows whatever else you were playing at the time, and you would be the one-man band, but it was fairly awesome just how many things you were playing at once and orchestrating all that.
Well, I could play just enough to, on any particular instrument to play the part that I needed for any one song. But I could not, for instance, actually read a chart and play an oboe part or something like that. I believe it or not, I owned an oboe at one point, but I only ever learned to play like a couple of notes. The only time it ever got used on a record was like my second solo album.
Okay.
But I just played enough on the oboe to work for the part that I needed, and then the oboe gathered dust after that.
We go back far enough that I actually bought Nas albums, and
Yeah.
but my timing was off because I thought the Yardbirds were singing about Nas, and it was a different song.
Well, the
Nas got their name.
the
from
origin, we actually did get the name of the band from the B-side of Happenings 10 years time ago, which was the Nas Are Blue, which I think was the first time Jeff Beck ever sang on record, and maybe
Wow.
the last time. Haven't heard him sing much since.
No?
But what they were referring to, we weren't exactly sure. We just thought it was a snappy name, had no previous meaning, so we could define it for ourselves.
I think this is the part where we get to talk about all this, but the people you produced along the way. Classic rock radio would have nothing to play if we would take you completely out of every equation. It would be Start Me Up and Hotel
I wouldn't
California.
go quite that far, but I did have a spate, a lucky streak in there.
You did the band. You did Stage
I
Fright.
did Stage Fright with the band. I did Straight Up with Badfinger, from which Baby Blue came.
I got to ask you about
The
that.
last
so
song.
when you're watching Breaking Bad and that, did you
Well,
know
I
that
was
was going to
watching
come
it.
on?
I heard about it the next day,
Okay.
and then people are calling me up saying, did you know about this? And then I was pleasantly surprised to learn about it. We were also pleasantly surprised to find out that Apple Records hadn't been paying me royalties on the song for years and years, and suddenly when it's on the TV show, they have to pay up. So
it's
So
all
it was more than simply an interesting musical moment. It actually took us literally back to the past.
and how things
Yeah.
used to be. The Meatloaf album, so many in there.
Well, nobody thought Meatloaf was going to be, a world-shaking phenomenon. We were just hoping to get the record done at the time.
They hadn't heard Bat Out of Hell yet.
Yeah, and essentially it was done without the underwriting of a label. I actually took on the project, and he had a label, and the day before we were supposed to start recording, he said, my label doesn't understand me, and I want off of them. And so I had to underwrite the making of the record.
Wow.
And Bearsville essentially, provided the resources for it, and we gave them right of first refusal. They turned it down. They didn't want the record, and neither did most any other label in the business.
Amazing.
It took them months and months and months to find this little label called Cleveland International that was willing to put the record out. And even then, it didn't hit right away. it took 3 singles. They released 3 singles that didn't do anything until like the 3rd single, and that was mostly because Meatloaf was one of the first artists to be on MTV.
Right.
MTV was a fairly new phenomenon, and the VJs loved playing Paradise by the Dashboard Light because it lasted 7 minutes.
Sure.
So they could do what all DJs do when they get an extra long track.
Oh, there you go. I think that's a great way to get into the next song. I could listen to Todd Rundgren stories all day. If you haven't figured it out, we are talking to the Hermit of Mulhollow. Now in
Mink Hollow, yeah.
You've got a T-shirt up that says Mall Hollow now. So
Yeah,
anyway.
Mole Hollow.
Yeah. What are you going to play for us next? Then we'll talk about why you're in
Well,
Denver.
maybe I'll hop over the piano and I'll play something else from that Something Anything album that everyone is so
It's a good one, you
enamored
know.
of. But it's a good one. It was only my 3rd one. I'm
Right.
just releasing a 25th album now, so.
We'll talk about that too.
Alrighty. This is going back to my roots, as it were. I am a Viking of some notes, newts my name, and here I float out on the sea in a great big boat, and I'm the one who beats the drum in time to stroke the oars that drive our galleons on. And while we rowed, we had our song, and we had our God, and it may seem odd, but at least there was caught our wind and we upped the sail, lost 2 ships when it turned to a gale, down with a 3rd which we rammed on a whale, though it is sped we could not fail, and through it all we never faltered. Late at night I lay on deck, wondering why I risked my neck, picture myself in a sinking wreck, and down I'm going not knowing why. I just can't quite recall the reason why. It's such a drag to carry on, but there was a cause, so there was a cause, so there was a reason. If you like, I'll be your Viking. Gah! Set you down to a Nordic meal, give you strength that you might wield a Viking sword and a Viking shield and a full sail and mighty ships of yore. Perhaps we should let our hands get sore. We need someone to pull the oars and to do the chores. So we need a cause, so we need a reason why. And that's why I don't play piano.
The Steinway is tingling like it never has before. The instrument enjoyed that performance. We're talking to Todd Rundgren today in the Open Air 102.3 FM. Let's talk about the new album and then talk about the event. Now, the last album was called State. And
State,
This
yes.
one's global.
This one's global. Yeah,
Okay.
We're expanding. We're going galactic next, and then universal after that. And
And what's the deal behind this album?
well, it's kind of a cheerleading record, and at the same time, a little bit of cautionary and morality-based songwriting. I'm trying to get everybody to develop a sort of like a planetary, while listening to the record at least, this sort of planetary outside-in consciousness, to see the world as one whole thing, as opposed to, the way we usually see it, which is a lot of divided space, starting with our personal space, and then there's the house you live in and the block you live on and your neighborhood and your state and your country and all that. Everything's kind of divided up from the individual standpoint, but trying to get everyone to see it as a whole, see the planet as a whole thing, realize that some of what's happening is going to affect all of us regardless of where we are, and to kind of get everyone on the same page to deal with some of the issues that are beyond the powers of single individuals to sort of deal with. It takes a collective will sometimes to to deal with these issues.
And you did this all in music.
Yeah, and I did it all by myself.
You did it all by yourself. Well, there's a shame. So when you're communicating with young people who are interested in a career in music, because where you started and how you started and where you've been, these are things most of them are going to be completely unfamiliar with. What kind of feedback do you get from them? Do they have an awareness? Do they know who you are?
Well, it's ironic. I've gotten an interesting amount of attention from a certain sector of young musicians.
Okay.
Who, they use synthesizers or they play a certain kind of style of music, and they're interested in what the roots of that might be.
Okay.
And so I was one of the very first people to start using synthesizers and sequencers, and a lot of it in a very experimental manner. And so some younger artists are interested in what it was like in the old days, when we were just starting out and everything was analog and knobs and wires, as opposed to just using your iPad
Sure.
to make music. And as a result, I've been doing remixes for some younger artists, and that sort of interest that they've had in my musical history has gotten me interested in what's happening now. So, like State, my last album, was a result of a lot of kind of online research into what was happening out in the fringes of music. And Global, the new album, is essentially taking what I've learned and merging it more with my traditional songwriting sensibilities.
Okay.
And as a result, it's probably a more accessible record than State was, which was very aggressively experimental.
You've been aggressively experimental many times. I was going to ask about a Utopia reunion, but I guess Utopia never really goes away. They're just...
Well, you could say in that ideal musical sense, I live in Hawaii now, so I've achieved many of my utopian goals. Utopia as a band, we never say never. It's always a possibility, but if we're going to do it, we would only do it right. We wouldn't do it just so that people could reminisce about the good old days.
Right.
We have to be satisfied with our own performance when we're done.
Cool. Well, Todd is here, CU Denver's Music and Entertainment Industry Studies Department. He is the inaugural artist in residence. This is going to be an event on the Auraria campus that people can come to tonight.
Yes.
So now who else playing tonight besides you?
Well, we have several ensembles from the school, and I'll be working with them as well. We've got I just arrived here from working with the I guess it's the iPad and computer ensemble, essentially mostly kind of electronic style music ensemble. And I believe we'll have the a cappella ensemble there as well. The award-winning, internationally recognized a cappella ensemble. And I believe there's a pop ensemble as well. I'm going to work with them a little later on today.
And then tomorrow on Friday afternoon, you've got a lecture.
Yeah, we've got a kind of I don't know whether you call it a lecture. It's more of a elaborate Q&A.
Okay.
Yeah, and be open to questions from the audience as well. So that'll be a chance for anyone who wasn't in any of the classes to get their questions answered.
Well, Professor Todd Rundgren
Like
is
the meaning of life or anything like that.
Absolutely. Well, we need to know these things. Thank you so much for coming to see us today. We know you've got a really busy schedule. I had a much longer interview. I was going to ask you about Eric Clapton's guitar and Soupy Sales Kids and all these things you normally get asked about.
All of that trivia
Well, we've got
we'll
19,
never get to.
We've got 19 more albums to talk about, so come back again sometime.
Yeah.
All right. Todd Rundgren tonight at the King Center at 7:30, and then a lecture Q&A, et cetera, tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock. We've got the details on the website at openaircpr.org. Thanks so much, Todd.
My pleasure.